Hey everybody, Stephen Dilworth with Brief Prayer Worship again here for the second devotional. I'm going to start off with a verse in Genesis where God is actually forming man. It says, "Then the Lord formed the man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living creature." Breathe is our first part of our mantra, and today's devotion is going to be just set on that, to breathe. I mentioned a little bit in the intro yesterday that it is just a time I responded as the first part of kind of the mantra and reminding, and one of the things when I was going through my period of emotional crisis, emotional trauma, distraught, whatever you want to call it, for me it was a divorce too, and I want to share, like, this isn't just for divorced people. People experience emotional trauma through loss, tragedy, health issues. I've been talking with some veterans who just talking through some of our principles that we've learned and feeling like it really applies to them. And so while I'm speaking from my experience, it doesn't just fit my story. And so hopefully you guys can get some stuff out of this. But one of the days during my kind of challenge, I had been granted a leave of absence from the church I was on staff at. My kids were on the East Coast with their mother, and we were separated, and I'm just trying to figure everything out, trying to figure out, like, how do I fix this, right? Just this responsibility of somehow getting it right with God, and that everything was falling apart, and what that meant for me, because I was a failure, right? I was a failure as a husband, I was a failure as a dad, I was a failure as a pastor, and I had to fix things. Somehow I had to make this better for my kids, my family, my friends, the church, the community that I was heavily engaged in, and it was just overwhelming. And there were days, literally, like, I just was so shut down, I could do nothing. And I got a phone call from one of the people who was kind of part of my support team, and I'll talk about the value of that later. But it was midday. It was probably afternoon, and I was just rolling out of bed and just sharing this like, feeling of, like, waste. And I really wish I remembered the supporter's name, but I just remember so clearly. They're like, just slow down and take a deep breath. And so I did, just this heavy breath. And they just reminded me that what you're going through right here absolutely sucks. And there's nothing we can do about it. And so take a breath. And then in that breath, if that's the only thing I did that day, if the only thing I did was to wake up and to breathe and make it through this season, this stretch of time that just so lost, then that was victory. To breathe, if you're in a spot where you're just absolutely struggling, you don't know where to go, but you know what, you wake up and you take a breath, and that next day you wake up again, then it's okay. Some days that is victory enough to win. So I want to encourage you guys just to be thinking through that, the verse of God breathing, taking his breath and putting it into man, and it declared him living. I want to read you guys a little bit from Ezekiel. I'll throw the little verse up there, hopefully, with my high technology skills. It's the Valley of Dry Bones, Ezekiel 37. And God is talking. He says, "Thus says the Lord God to these bones, Behold, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live, and I will lay sinews upon you, and will cause flesh to come upon you, and cover you with new skin, and put breath into you, and you shall live, and you shall know that I am Lord." And it kind of goes down more in this part 2 here, just skipping down to verse 10. Ezekiel says, "So I prophesied as he commanded me, And the breath came into them, and they lived and stood on their feet, an exceedingly great army. And then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they say, our bones are dried up, and our hope is lost, and we are indeed cut off. And can you just remind, like, at a spot of emotional pain, just feeling lost and cut off. And this is the text here. And Jesus says, I will breathe into you. And I will put my spirit into you. And this is God through the prophet Ezekiel. And so today what I want you to do as part of this devotional, take some time, take a deep breath, go on a walk, look around, see things. Just be really mindful to breathe. Be mindful of the Spirit of God pouring into you and giving you life.